Silence is power, not because it hides your truth, but because it guards it. In a world that constantly pressures you to express, to share, to be visible in every moment, the choice to remain silent becomes a rare kind of strength. We've been led to believe that speaking up is the only form of empowerment, that if we don't tell our story, someone else will. And while that might be true in some cases, there's a deeper truth we often overlook. What you choose not to say can be more powerful than anything you say out loud. When you stay silent, it doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're discerning. It means you've realized that your energy is not infinite, and not everyone is worthy of your inner world. You begin to understand that your story, your journey, your pain, your growth is sacred. And sacred things aren't handed out to anyone who asks. They're protected, they're honored, they're kept in a place of reverence until the time is right. Silence allows you that space to hold your own story with dignity before offering it to the world. It also gives you control, because once words leave your mouth, you can't take them back. Once your truth is out in the open, it's vulnerable to interpretation, to misunderstanding, and sometimes even to exploitation. When you speak, people don't just listen with their ears, they filter your story through their own insecurities, their own biases, their own intentions. That's why silence isn't just about privacy, it's about protection. It's about owning your narrative before others twist it to fit theirs. In silence, you preserve your energy. You avoid the emotional drain that comes from explaining yourself to those who will never truly understand. You bypass the need for validation, the addiction to being seen and heard in every moment. Because real confidence, real peace, doesn't come from being constantly understood. It comes from being okay with not being understood. It comes from knowing that your story, your pain, your process doesn't need public applause to be real. Silence also builds inner strength. It gives you the mental space to reflect, to understand yourself more deeply without the noise of external opinions. When you're not constantly sharing, you're listening to your intuition, to your healing, to your growth. You develop clarity. You start moving with intention, not reaction. You become more grounded in who you are and less shaken by how others see you. And maybe most importantly, silence is a powerful response in a loud, chaotic world. While others are explaining, defending, oversharing, your silence says, I don't owe anyone my truth right now. It says, I am enough, even when I say nothing. That level of self-assurance can't be faked. It's built in the quiet moments. The moments when you choose not to react, not to explain, not to open up until you're ready, and not until it serves you. Every time you choose silence, you're not retreating, you're reclaiming. You're choosing to protect your energy, to respect your journey, and to let your presence, your peace, and your growth speak louder than words ever could. Not everyone deserves access to your story, your dreams, or your pain. That truth is hard to accept in a world where oversharing has become the norm, where vulnerability is often confused with exposure, and where people are encouraged to spill every detail of their lives for connection, attention, or validation. But there is a difference between being open and being wise. There's a difference between sharing to heal and sharing because you haven't yet learned the value of protecting what's sacred. When you allow the wrong people into your inner world, you don't just risk being misunderstood, you risk being used, judged, or even betrayed. Your pain is personal, your dreams are delicate. They are both formed in the most vulnerable corners of your soul. And when you offer them to people who haven't earned your trust, you give them a power they haven't proven they can handle. Some will pretend to listen, but quietly compare themselves to you. Some will offer sympathy on the surface, while secretly feeling superior. And some will take your truth and twist it not because they care, but because it gives them a sense of control or advantage. This is the danger of giving too much too soon to people who have not shown they are safe. Not everyone wants to see you grow. Not everyone is rooting for your healing or your success. Sometimes people prefer the version of you that's broken, uncertain, or small because it makes them feel better about their own limitations. So when you share your aspirations, when you speak your dreams aloud in the presence of those who are threatened by your light, you invite resistance. You risk being discouraged, doubted, or even mocked. And often it's not loud, it's subtle. It's the way they roll their eyes, the way they downplay your vision, the way they offer backhanded compliments wrapped in fake concern. And slowly, piece by piece, you begin to question your own fire. That's why discernment is everything. You must learn to read people, not just by what they say, but by how they respond to your silence, your growth, and your peace. The right people will honor your story, even when you say very little. They'll hold space without needing every detail. They'll celebrate your dreams without inserting their own fears. But the wrong people, they'll take what you give them and weaponize it. They'll gossip about it. They'll measure your progress against their insecurities. They'll turn your openness into ammunition. Protecting your inner world is not about being cold or distant. It's about understanding that your journey is not for public consumption. You don't owe your vulnerability to everyone. You don't need to explain your path to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay quiet, stay focused, and let your results speak in a language no one can twist. Your dreams are fragile until they grow strong enough to stand on their own. Until then, choose carefully. Not everyone deserves access to the deepest parts of who you are. Healing happens in private. It's not loud. It doesn't need a stage. It doesn't require an audience. True growth, the kind that transforms you from the inside out, unfolds quietly, away from the noise, far from the spotlight. We've been taught that in order to be seen as strong, we need to showcase our pain and broadcast our recovery. But the deepest healing doesn't seek validation. It seeks stillness. It's in the quiet moments, the ones no one sees, where real transformation begins. There is something sacred about the solitude that healing demands. When you're hurting, the world often tells you to talk it out, share your story, let others in. And while there's value in being supported, there's also immense power in keeping certain parts of your journey to yourself. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting something fragile as it mends. A wound exposed too early doesn't heal, it gets infected. The same is true for emotional wounds. If you rush to explain your pain to others before you fully processed it, you risk misunderstanding your own experience through someone else's lens. Growth is not always visible. Sometimes it looks like staying still. Sometimes it's a decision to rest instead of react, to reflect instead of respond. It's choosing peace over performance. Healing is not a performance. You don't need to prove that you're getting better. You don't need to tell the world how far you've come for your progress to be real. The absence of applause doesn't make your recovery any less valid. In fact, some of the most powerful breakthroughs happen when no one is watching. When you're crying in the dark, questioning everything and still choosing not to give up. You don't owe anyone a timeline. You don't have to explain why you're still hurt or why certain days feel heavier than others. Healing doesn't follow a schedule, and it doesn't answer to pressure. It unfolds on its own terms, in its own time, and in its own way. And the beauty of healing in private is that you learn to rely on your own strength. You stop performing for approval. You stop needing someone else to recognize your effort. You become your own witness. There is a quiet dignity in that. The kind that cannot be taken from you because it was never given by someone else. It was built slowly, steadily, in silence. When you heal in private, you take ownership of your story without needing to explain it. You walk through the fire alone and come out on the other side stronger, wiser, and more whole, not because the world saw it, but because you lived it. Your wounds don't need to be validated by the crowd to be real. They're real because you feel them. Your progress doesn't need applause to matter. It matters because it's yours. So give yourself permission to grow quietly, to heal in peace, to become in silence. Let your private journey build the kind of strength that doesn't need to be seen to be true. Your story is not entertainment. It's not a script for someone else to pick apart, laugh at, or use as fuel for their curiosity. It's your life, your experience, your pain, your triumph, and it was never meant to be consumed like drama on a screen. But too often we forget that. We start to share pieces of ourselves with people who haven't earned that access. We open up in moments of vulnerability, thinking we're connecting, when in reality we're handing our truth to someone who only wants a story to tell, not a soul to understand. When you let your story become public too soon, you give people the power to turn it into something it was never meant to be. They begin to attach their opinions, their commentary, their judgments. Suddenly your pain is no longer yours. It's been reshaped, twisted, and passed around like gossip. You may have spoken from a place of honesty, from a need to be heard, but now that honesty is being picked apart by those who view your life like it's a form of casual entertainment. Not everyone listens with compassion. Some people listen for weakness. Some collect stories not to understand, but to compare, to mock, or to control. They'll smile to your face and replay your words behind your back, not out of concern, but for the satisfaction of being in the know. This is why it's so important to preserve the dignity of your journey. Not out of shame, not because you need to hide, but because it is yours, and not everyone deserves the privilege of holding it. Your story is sacred. Every struggle you've endured, every mistake you've learned from, every quiet victory you've won, these moments carry weight. They shaped you, they taught you, and when you speak them aloud, they should be treated with respect. That kind of respect doesn't come from just anyone. It comes from people who genuinely care, who listen without judgment, and who don't feel entitled to the deepest parts of your life. There's a difference between vulnerability and exposure. Vulnerability is intentional, it's brave, and it's shared with purpose. Exposure, on the other hand, is careless. It's when you offer your story without boundaries, hoping someone else will validate it for you. But no one else can give your story meaning. That meaning already exists in your survival, in your resilience, in your quiet determination to keep going, even when it hurt. You don't need to post your pain for it to be real. You don't need to broadcast your healing for it to matter. When you keep your story protected, you maintain its power. You give yourself the space to grow without pressure, to process without interference, and to heal without commentary. The world doesn't need to know everything about you. They only need to witness what you become. Let it breathe in silence. Let it be something sacred, not something shared for amusement. Don't let your journey become someone else's gossip. Preserve its dignity. It deserves nothing less. Speak through actions, not words. In a time where everyone talks, posts, promises, and declares, there is something rare and powerful about the person who simply does. The one who doesn't argue, doesn't explain, doesn't try to convince, but just moves. Quietly, consistently, powerfully. Because at the end of the day, words are cheap. The world isn't moved by what you say. It's moved by what you do. Results silence doubters. Action speaks in a language louder than any speech ever could. You don't need to announce your every move. You don't need to convince people of your worth, your plan, or your potential. Just let your work show it. Let your discipline speak for you. Let your improvement become your voice. That's the kind of power that doesn't need to shout. It just shows up and gets things done. You see, talk invites doubt. It opens the door for others to challenge, question, or dismiss you. But when you've already moved, already built, already changed, there's nothing left to argue. The proof is there. The conversation is over before it begins. People respect results. They might not like you, they might not agree with you, but they respect what they can see. And the moment your actions align with your goals, the moment you start producing, the noise fades. All the skepticism, the doubt, the criticism, it falls silent in the face of evidence. This is why action is so powerful. Because it doesn't ask for respect, it commands it. It's easy to talk about dreams. It's easy to say you're working on yourself, chasing success or becoming better. But none of that matters until your life starts to reflect it, until your habits match your words, until your progress starts speaking for itself. That's when people start to pay attention. Not when you say what you're going to do, but when they watch you do it. And the beauty of speaking through actions is that it doesn't depend on anyone else. You don't need validation, applause, or permission. You just need focus. You just need discipline. Let others talk. Let them doubt. Let them gossip. Stay grounded. Keep working. Your silence will frustrate them, but your progress will shut them up. Because you don't owe them an explanation, you owe yourself results. Stop wasting time trying to convince people of your growth. Stop announcing plans you haven't followed through on. Let them underestimate you. Let them think you're not ready. Then show them with execution. Show them with elevation. Show them with transformation. That's how you win. Not with promises, but with proof. It's the ones who act, not the ones who talk, who rise. So choose action. Choose quiet. Let your journey be lived, not explained. Let your results be the only speech you ever need to give. Because the truth is simple. The world listens to success. It listens to results. Speak less, move more, let your life do the talking. Timing is everything. There's a quiet wisdom in waiting, in protecting your process until it's ready to be revealed. Not every part of your story is meant to be shared in real time. Some chapters are still forming, still raw, still too fragile to carry the weight of outside opinions. Sharing too soon can do more harm than good, not because your truth isn't valuable, but because it hasn't finished shaping you yet. When your story is still unfolding, it's in a delicate phase. Exposing it too early invites noise, distractions, and potentially damaging feedback that can derail your growth. It's tempting to speak while you're still in the storm. You want to be seen, understood, maybe even comforted. You want to express what you're going through so others can validate your pain or celebrate your progress. But here's the truth. When you're still in the middle of your transformation, you often don't fully understand it yourself. What feels like certainty today might shift tomorrow. What you believe to be a final answer could turn out to be just a stepping stone. Sharing too soon can lock you into a version of your story that no longer fits once you've grown past it. When you wait, you give your experience time to breathe. You allow your lessons to settle. You begin to see with clarity instead of emotion. And with that clarity comes strength. Not just the strength to share, but the wisdom to know how to share and who to share it with. Timing is not about secrecy, it's about protection. It's about giving yourself space to process without pressure, to build without outside noise, to heal without having to explain yourself to anyone. You don't need to prove your progress while it's happening. You don't have to post your struggle or narrate your breakthrough in real time. The world can wait. Your growth isn't for performance, it's for you. And when you honor the timing of your journey, something powerful happens. Your story becomes clear, complete, and far more impactful. Instead of fragments shared out of desperation or confusion, you offer a testimony shaped by understanding and reflection. The most powerful stories are the ones told from the other side. Not from the wound, but from the scar. Not from the chaos, but from the calm after the storm. That's when your words carry weight. That's when your experience becomes useful, not just emotional. When your story is complete, when you've seen it all, felt it all, and come out the other side with wisdom, you can speak with authority, with peace, with power. Until then, protect your process. Guard your progress like it matters. Because it does. Let yourself grow in private. Let your journey unfold without the pressure to explain it. Timing is everything, and your story deserves to be told from a place of strength, not struggle. Wait for that moment. Trust in the silence. Trust in the process. The right time will come, and when it does, your story will be ready to speak for itself. So guard your story, not with fear, but with wisdom. You don't owe your pain to people who are just curious. You don't need to announce your healing before it's complete. You don't have to prove your growth to anyone who isn't walking that path with you. True strength isn't loud. It's quiet, disciplined, and deliberate. It moves in silence and lets the results speak. There's power in privacy. There's peace in not being understood by everyone. And there's clarity in knowing that your story is not for the world to consume. It's for you to live, learn from, and protect until the time is right. Speak through action. Let your growth surprise them. Let your silence confuse them. Let your transformation humble them. Because at the end of the day, not everyone deserves access. Not everyone has the right to your dreams, your struggles, or your progress. Your story is not entertainment, it is sacred. Healing happens in the quiet. Timing is everything, and your life deserves to unfold without the weight of other people's opinions holding it back. Protect your path. Respect your process, and never forget, what you keep to yourself often becomes your greatest source of power.